Detective Comics 1087 Ram V writing with, unfortunately, Gilliam March on art. Joe's funny, I didn't notice he was doing this issue, and I was
No.
reading the issue, and I'm like, a couple pages in, I'm like, why is the art not as good as it usually is? What's going on? Uh, sure enough,
So
that was why.
when we got to the first page, I was like, for Gilliam March, this is not bad, right? Like, and then the further it went, and the more the proportions got a little bit wonky, I was
Yeah,
kind of
no,
like,
honestly, I think
okay,
that's the thing, is the first page actually doesn't look like Gilliam March that much. It just
no,
looks like, I don't know who I'd say it looks like, but
any,
it didn't
yeah,
scream Gilliam March at me right
mm-mm,
away. It wasn't until, I don't know, a few pages later maybe. I think the big thing is that honestly most of it's fine
yeah,
until Batman shows up, and Batman looks
yes,
horrendous. Right? And all the plasters on like Batman's like chin and stuff, like in the way, like
yeah,
it's just he's got that Gilliam March look to how he's drawn, and that's where it all
mm-hmm,
started. And I was like, wait, what's going on with the art all of a sudden? And I was like, oh, it's Gilliam March. Which
yeah,
you're right, it does make the first chunk of the book kind of impressive for him,
mm-hmm.
but yeah, yeah,
So for me, it was the you turn to page two, and just the proportions on Nightwing are very are very March-esque.
sure, sure. It's
You
such a
know,
small part of the
uh-huh,
page though that it didn't stick out to me
yeah,
that much. I guess seemingly like drawing Joker's daughter wasn't too bad, and even drawing
no,
the eyed lady with the 10-eyed man kind of
yeah.
worked
All
well
those
enough.
pages I thought were really good, but you're right. You get to Batman, and suddenly Batman looks off, and then you turn the page and Freeze and the other, the we'll just call him the other guy because I forget his name right now.
The blood one.
Um, yeah, the blood guy. He looks all that stuff looks pretty good, you know. So I would
Yeah,
say pretty adept at kind of drawing Joker's daughter and these monsters. But when you get to Batman, I don't know, he's just off.
yeah. That said, though, the actual story content of the issue
Mm-hmm.
is very good. We're really ramping up to the conclusion here. Joker's daughter, turns out that was just like an empty puppet
Mm-hmm.
that was like making the call. It wasn't Arzen. We find out where he is later. He is indeed still with
Mm-hmm.
Talia, as we find out later in the issue. But she's like, yeah, I've made this more interesting. Like all the poor people in Gotham. Like, hey, I've planted bombs in all those districts.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the only way you could survive is if you go and hang out with all the rich people. And of course, my favorite part of all this though is when it cuts to Mummy Arzen.
Uh-huh.
All right, uh,
Oregon.
Orgum, thank you.
Yes.
And she's like just furious and like, what is wrong with this city? What is the matter with the people here? They're all mad, and it's just because it feeds into that whole idea of thinking they can just come in and control Gotham, but it's all of the crazy characters that are going to like fight back in various ways, and it's starting
Yeah.
to piss her off. I found that quite enjoyable. Her
Well,
reaction to
yeah.
that.
And you're kind of rooting for the weirdos, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
essentially, the Organs have come in and gentrified and almost like colonized things, right? They're this old world European family, and they've tried to come over and take over this land only for the people that live there to be like, nah, we don't, we deal with worse things than you. We'll fight back. And when you take away the sheen of their control and all of their stuff that they've done, by gentrifying with Joker's daughter, her going, hey, all you, lesser thans, the people that don't have stuff, right? Go to them. They're your real enemy, right? It's not us weirdos. And again, having read some of other Ramby's other creator-owned stuff, that is a theme that he is constantly going back to, and so I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's not even the city or the people in the city are fighting back. It is the weirdos who are fighting back. It's those
Mm-hmm.
extreme elements. It's those things that are usually a negative that just like these arguments can't
Mm-hmm.
like fight through. And
Yeah.
that's actually probably did the best job actually of like separating all the various like soldiers she has, because
Yes.
because it does it multiple times where she's like, hey, where the hell is, in this case it's Shavod's the first one, the eye lady,
Yep.
and cut to 10-eyed man being like, those aren't real eyes, they're just painted on your mask, I've actually got 10 eyes, and starts messing with her with his powers, and like, obviously it's not a literal thing that happens, but the visual
Yeah.
art of like him just prodding her eye and her entire body just
He.
like shattering into pieces.
Yeah, and I love that page. Is probably some of the most that I've ever liked Gilliam March, because it does it her shattering in that way, and just the mess of it is, and with the way that Ten Eyed Man is drawn, almost Spider-Man esque, right? There's a lot of motion in his form. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, he's got all the threads that are kind of like Spider-Man's webs almost. Yeah, because this is the thing of this issue, is that each of her main soldiers has a different villain from Gotham stopping them, and it's like Batman's coming for her, but all the others are dealing with Gotham villains, and arguably the Joker, by proxy of his daughter, is the one dealing with the population, and then you've got these other key rogues dealing with the foot soldiers. So Ten-Eyed Man's got Shavod. When we get to the Blood Guy, that's Mr. Freeze, and he's prepped for that. And when we get to the Werewolf, that's Two-Face, and you know, these are all big scenes to happen.
I like how they all balance each other, right? Shavod with all the eyes, she's coming up against Ten-Eyed Man. Freeze, and then the Blood Guy, right? You know, you could say that there's something to do with, you know, not necessarily the blood of Mr. Freeze, but you know, there's something in him that is different too. And then,
I think what you're getting at is that the Blood Guy literally controls his blood temperature up and down. So there's a temperature thing.
right.
And then with Two-Face, you've got the idea that, you know, werewolf is literally two
duality.
Two people. It's two personalities, if you will.
Yes.
So
I like how they split all those up, and it makes for some really horrific, in a good way. Events that occur.
Yeah, so Batman's like storming the I think it's the prison where the Mummy Orgum is.
Yep.
And you know, we go back to Mr. Freeze, and this, you know, at first he's in the ice, the villain. I'm
looking for his name because I saw it and I was like, oh, that's what it is.
It's Niang.
Niang, that's right.
Yeah, it's the page right before it cuts to him. But he breaks out the ice and is like, hey, I can control my body temperature and my blood. And then it turns out Mr. Freeze accounted for this because he didn't know which of the villains was coming for him, so he prepped for all of them. And his prep for him is that there's something in the ice that when he heated it up with his body, he ingested it, and it's actually now coagulating his blood. So now he can't use his like fancy blood powers anymore, and he's lying there in a pool of his own blood, just kind of like freaking out. Technically not dying. But because this is the same with, you know, the next scene's Two-Face and the werewolf, and I do love this, that like the werewolf's got him pinned, and Two-Face is like, well, I'll just have to, you know, sacrifice one of myself, and he shoots through himself with the silver bullets to take down the wolf, but he only does it on the Harvey Dent side, which is really funny. But he does have a good reason. He's like, hey, technically the heart's on my side, so this was more likely to keep us alive.
I do love that because the shock, right? Because Ten Claw, the werewolf, is like kind of, he's already celebrating that he's won, right? He goes, I've eaten some silver, but it'll take more than a gun-toting gangster to take me out. And he goes, nah, I know, I used him as bait. And he goes, who? And then he shoots through himself. Yeah. All right, so Two-Face isn't even, you know, saying that he used himself as bait. He used Harvey as his bait. And just,
it's a great moment.
Him shooting through himself. Yeah. It might be an all-time Two-Face moment here.
Yeah, he tosses the coin if he should finish the job, and it lands on Tails, or equivalent, and he's like, okay, I could keep tossing the coin until I can kill him and shoot him in the head, but Batman wouldn't like that, so I'll do a good deed and just call it there and go off. So, yeah, all these scenes with the villains were all great. It really felt like a big culmination, having all the various villain entities, and it's fun having Ten-Eyed Man in there because he feels like a new addition to that sort of rogues gallery, whereas Freeze, and actually thinking about it, Two-Face is really, really old. Freeze is old now, but he's nowhere as old as Two-Face, and then Ten-Eyed Man's a pretty new addition to the rogues galleries, at least it feels that way anyway. So it feels like a nice spread over the, you know, three of them.
And this version of Freeze especially, because this is more, I feel like this is, you know, Heart of Ice style Freeze, right? Where you kind of got that gravitas.
I mean, ever since that animated series, like that's kind of, for the most part, the Mr. Freeze we've had in the comics is kind of based on that.
So it feels like almost different eras of Gotham coming together as well, you know? Yeah.
So Batman's fighting Mummy Orgum. She's very pissed about all this, and she's like...
By the way, her name is Jiraiya.
So, that doesn't even sound familiar.
No, but it is.
Jiraiya, sure.
I pulled her up on League of Comic Geeks.
So, yeah, like, Batman's fighting her, and she's like, look, this is not exactly all went to plan, but, you know, like, this chaos will still give us results we want, because we're switching to fear now anyway. I've got Jonathan Crane hooked up to the reality engine in there, pumping fear throughout the city. So even if it's not how we originally planned to do this, but we're adjusting for all the crap that you're throwing at us, the city's just going to have to be controlled by fear. And the end of the issue is, she's broadcasting stuff out to the city and cause panic, and she herself transforms into a big double-mouthed monster of some kind.
Yeah, to a something.
I don't even know what to call this. It's very it's very HR Giger, I'll say.
Yeah, down to the double face, that resembles something else, maybe with teeth.
Well, it's double face. It was more just the skeleton though made me think of Giger.
Yeah.
It was making me think less alien and more species, if you've seen that, and how Syl looks in that in her natural form. I was getting a little bit of that, but definitely a creepy, monstrous visual. But it definitely feels like we're building up to the big climax here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, she's icky, man. The what she was revealed as, even worse than any of these other creatures that we've had. I thought the blood guy was kind of gross, just because the stuff that he was doing with the blood. It was almost Cronenbergian there. But here, this one just like, really good stuff though.
I mean, actually, when you think of it that way, like the three henchmen plus her, you've got very different types of horrific images. You've got the sort of surreal with Shavod, right? You've got that sort of like David Lynch almost, like this is all not making sense. It's very abstract. And then you've got a werewolf, which is a very classic horror movie. You've got the blood guy, who's a lot more like body horror, like you say, Cronenberg-esque. And then you've got this, which is a lot more kind of cerebral, like monster design. They're all very different, like types of horror entity. That's kind of an interesting choice, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
It makes for a nice mixed issue of chaos.
But yeah, Ram V here, again, Stuff of Nightmares. He's really good at this.
It's an understatement, honestly. But no, I mean, story-wise, this was a great issue. It felt like, much like last time where I said it felt like everything was coming together and paying off, this still felt like that. This felt like a lot of payoff to everything that we've been doing for about a year and a half or whatever it's been since all this kicked off. But the art is a little bit of a detriment. Not the entire issue, surprisingly. Yeah. Like, some pages are actually pretty decent for at least by Gillen Marchie standards, but it is definitely a step down, and that's a bit of a shame that it's just kind of slotted in here right towards the end. We've got this fill-in artist that's not anywhere nearly as good. But with that aside, though, certainly still a lot to like in the issue. So, what are you rating Detective Comics?
Primarily for the story, I'm going to give this an 8.5.
There's a backup, actually.
Yeah,
Before
I was going to say, are we going to get the backup, too? Cause...
Yeah. No, I read the backup. Okay. The backup actually is quite important, because it's presumably going to come into play in the last part of the story. So, basically, it's Talia has got Arzen, and she has him in like a big test tube, and it's basically saying, hey, the Lazarus pits are gone, but for years, the League of Assassins has been trying to do it artificially, like trying to synthesize Lazarus juice, and can they pull it off? And seemingly for the first time ever, they have. Like, she spends a lot of time talking or narrating, and then eventually Arzen wakes up and is like, wait, my mom killed me, what's going on? And effectively, we're leaving us in this position where he's going back to the city to confront his mother, along with Talia. And Talia, in some way, kind of implies at the end here that she's almost a little envious, because this character, because she relates to him because he'd been raised to be a specific thing for his mother's empire, which is exactly what Raz is like with her. She's got this purpose and the demon and all that. But he here is kind of become free of it, because he now knows that his mother turned on him, and that he was just a cog in the wheel, and he wasn't actually important to her in the traditional sense. And he's kind of free of that now, and in some way she kind of is envious of that. That's an interesting little point to make here, I thought. But it is an important backup, if only because, he's going to probably show up in the last part of the story, and we'll probably, if you hadn't read the backup, you might be like, wait,
where'd he come from?
Yeah, he's up, he's alive, he's walking around, what's going on?
Yeah. What I liked here too was Talia talking about Roz and her questioning and what it was like to go through the Lazarus experience, and he thinks that she's talking about like the weakness, but she's just wondering like because it messes with your mind, right? Like how is she sure this is her dad that comes back every time? And I like that aspect of it. Well, it's from someone that, you know, she's watched him do this how many times, you know, and you know, it's almost like the, you know, yeah, he eventually comes back to what she knows. But, you know, so as she's watching Arzin, you know, get, you know, almost like Luke in the Bacta tank, right? You know, she's having these thoughts as well. Like, is he going to come back as whole? You know, have we perfected it even more than what it was? And I thought that was another interesting aspect to bring on that.
I don't even so much think it was like that she was concerned that her dad wouldn't come back properly. She does bring up, of course, that someone can come back wrong because their brain's too damaged after dying. But it was more that she said she was curious about just if it hurt or not. And I think to me, the point of that little conversation or her little memory there is that Raz would just be annoyed that she'd even ask that she would even want an explanation of the purpose of it. Like, oh, you know, like I do this so that the Ra's al Ghul Empire or purpose or order will continue forever. And she's like, you know, she's thinking to herself, I was just curious if it hurt. That's all. But how that's changed over the years, I don't know. To me, I kind of read that as like her remembering how much he doesn't even include her in like the thought process or anything. You know, he keeps her at this distance, right? It kind of furthers that divide between them. And like her realizing that she is just kind of a not a cog, but like you know, she's got a purpose for him, but it's not this loving like equality like father-daughter relationship kind of thing.
He'll never look at her as the heir, right?
Yes.
That's the whole point of Damien. That was the whole point of setting her up with Bruce, was to, you know, for if Bruce didn't want to be the heir, for her to produce an heir. And so so the fact that now that Arzin gets to be away from that, and it's almost a point of jealousy for her. I really like that, adding layers to Talia.
Yeah, because on some level she's never completely just sort of like, not disowned her father, that's not the right word, but completely severed the tie where she doesn't care anymore kind of thing. Right. She always still has in some form or another. So, no, it's an interesting little character thing there for Talia. I think that's what makes the backup work kind of well, is that it's got some exploration of Talia as a character, to kind of give it some depth beyond just what the plot's doing, but the plot is what the important thing is for the story, is that, oh, Arzin's back up. he's alive, and he knows what his mother did, and perhaps is going to have some things to say about it. He's probably going to be like, Mother, well, you killed me, Mother. I didn't appreciate that. I'm going to stab you, Mother. Or something to that effect.
Yeah. What is that voice?
I don't know.
Okay. I don't know if you're doing something from a movie or
no.
Or
I think it's what I imagine. If the doll Brahms could speak, that's what I imagine he would sound like. Oh dear. No, but the backup was a decent little addition and does feel like it's important to the overall story. Dan Waters once again writing. Christopher Mitten was on the art for that.
I'm very curious to see how his Nightwing's going to go, because he's proven this is Waters anyways, proven to have a kind of a good handle on Gotham.
It's interesting that he's testing the waters a little bit in the backup of Detective, and it's Taylor's coming to Detective to take over that, and he's going to Nightwing to take over that. It's a little bit funny. But all right, so you gave the book 8.5, did you say?
8.5, yes.
Yeah. I'm going to give it an 8, and that is it would be a 9 with better art, with good art, but with Gilliam March stinking up the place a bit, it's an 8 is the ceiling, I think, ultimately. But that's a testament to how much I'm enjoying the overall story that's happening.
He must be like one of the like funniest and well-meaning guys, because there's so many top writers that work with him and have nothing but good things to say.
Oh yeah, he must be a gem of a human being, but I just do not like his art. Yeah,
it's just one of those things where like I'm not a fan. There like wrestlers like that. Like, I'm sure you're great, I just don't want to watch you wrestle.
Hey, there's directors like that. Like Guillermo del Toro seems like a lovely human being. I just don't like his movies.
Yeah, that's good.